Hey there, travel beauty chasers, and welcome back to Chasing Travel Beauty with Stephanie. So, I've been encouraging all of you, if you haven't done it already, to do solo travel, and I'm excited because I've seen people say, I'm going to do it, I'm going to take a solo trip. And so, today I want to talk about the 5 things I wish I knew about solo traveling before I did it. And the first is, as I think about solo travel, I wish that I knew it wasn't going to be as hard, as scary, as lonely as I had imagined that it would be. So I'm going to take you back to, about 2 decades ago when I took my first solo trip. And this is like a true, when I say solo, like a true solo trip, no group tour, no cruise, no all, being with a group of people that maybe I didn't know them, who started off as strangers, who, become associates and friends, like a true solo trip. So my first time traveling solo was going to Venice. And so for work, I had to go to Milan, and I'd gone there with some of my colleagues from work. And we were in Milan. It was amazing. It was my second time in Italy, but my first time in Milan. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I knew I wanted to I was going to do this, after the meeting was over. I knew I was going to stay over and go to Venice. And before doing it, I talked to one of my friends and said, hey, why don't you meet me over there? And I'm trying to convince her she should come because, again, I had never traveled solo before. And I don't speak Italian. Like, oh, I don't know if this is a smart thing to do. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to go see what I had seen in pictures. I wanted to go see what I had seen in movies. I wanted to experience it for myself. And so I knew I wanted to stay at this, it was a Marriott Bonvoy property, high end. It was on the Grand Canal. And I knew I wanted to stay there. It was more money than I have ever paid for a hotel at that point in my life. And so I was sharing it with her, and she's like, oh, that's a lot of money. I don't want to spend that much. And I said, you know what? This might not be the trip for you to join me on because I didn't want to sacrifice the kind of experience that I knew I wanted to have. So, my colleagues leave Milan. I say, okay, I've never taken the train in Italy. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to navigate this. I'm going to figure it out. I did. I remember taking the train from Milan to Venice. And I remember walking outside of the train station because, when you get on the train, it's nothing but land. You're riding through all these places and you're just seeing nothing but land. You get off of the train, you're still on land. And it's not until you walk through the train station and go to walk out that you're greeted with the canals. And I remember literally laughing out loud. I was like amazed that it looked exactly as it did in pictures. And, the hotel I stayed in, I was like in the smallest, cheapest, no view room, but in an amazing hotel. And it was an amazing experience. And I realized, wow, I could navigate the area. Even though I didn't speak Italian, I could figure out how to get the train. Even though I didn't speak Italian, I could have all these wonderful experiences. Even though I knew no one, I could go out and eat in these restaurants and still enjoy it, even though I was sitting at a table by myself. And it was an amazing first experience. I remember I had read Rick Steves' book on, all the things you need to do and see in Venice. And I remember as I was, doing, he said, go walk here to this park and, make sure you get on, instead of the regular water taxi, get on it's like this big taxi system that like the locals use because it was a lot more affordable. And you can still, hit this spot where you get to the Rialto Bridge and it's just like majestic on the Grand Canal. Like all the things he said to do by yourself, I did them, and I did them by myself. And I was like, okay, it wasn't as hard, wasn't nearly as scary because like we imagine these worst case scenarios, like, if you've ever seen the movie Taken, right? You're like, who's gonna come get me? And I remember once my mom said, nobody wants you but me. So, you can go out into the world and you're going to be fine. Like, you're absolutely going to be fine. So it wasn't nearly as hard, scary, or lonely as I thought. And it was a thing that catapulted me into saying, oh, I did this. Oh, I can do this again, which takes me to my number 2 thing that I wish I knew. I wish I knew how it was going to like build my confidence, how it was going to build my problem solving skills to like, how do I figure out how am I going to communicate? How do I make connection with people who, may have very limited English? Like, how am I going to navigate in a place I've never been before? And as you build this muscle, it just gets stronger, and then it shows up in other areas of your life. So where I used to be a person who literally, I remember growing up, like I wouldn't even want to walk around the corner to the corner store by myself. I would always call one of my friends, hey, what are you doing? Don't you want to walk with me to the corner store? To becoming the person who's like traveling around the world by myself. So those are the first 2. So it's not nearly as scary, hard, or lonely as you think it will be. And it'll actually build that muscle of self-confidence, that trust in your ability to navigate, to handle any situation that comes your way. The third, I wish I knew, is like all of these tips, tricks, and hacks to make it more affordable. So, solo travel can be really expensive because think about it. No one's splitting the cost of that hotel room with you. Like, you're in the hotel room by yourself. You're paying that full cost. If you're doing a group tour, then there's usually a solo supplement because they're like, okay, they've built out the per person cost, thinking that like there'd be 2 people in the room, and so you're going to be there by yourself. When you're on the cruise, same thing. There's this extra layer of cost because you're a solo person traveling. And so, I've now learned, okay, there are many ways to reduce the cost of travel. I think the first one and the biggest one for me is like using points or miles. So now everything that I pay for using my American Express. I use all of those points. Some people use their points to like buy things. I use those points to get experiences. So I'll either move it over to Marriott Bonvoy so that I can have free hotels. So for example, when I went to Malta Christmas of 24, I stayed in the Westin Dragonara, which is like one of the best hotels in St. Julian's. And I don't know, it was less than like $10. I just had to pay the taxes, so I did that for free. When I went to Barcelona, I stayed like after, was it before the cruise? After the cruise or before the cruise? Yeah, it was actually after the cruise. I stayed at the Hotel Arts. It's a Four Seasons property, and I stayed there. Only points in a couple of dollars. So I realized, okay, there are ways to do solo travel and make it affordable. The other big thing is knowing when some of these tour groups like run their specials. So for example, Gate 1, they do they waive the single supplement typically in March and September. So being strategic about when you're going to book your trip so that you can actually leverage these discounts. Same thing with Explore Journeys. They also ran a promotion for a discount on solo travel. And sometimes they have promotions that you don't even know about. So I remember calling them, asking if they had a solo promotion, and they were looking and they said, actually, yes. So the last cruise that I went with on Explorer Journeys, which was, it went through Italy, Croatia, and Greece. I saved almost $2,000 just by asking, do you have a solo promotion? So, there are many ways to make solo travel more affordable. So that's 4, right? So 1, it's not as nearly as, hard, scary, or lonely as we imagine. It's going to grow us in ways that we wouldn't have expected. We're going to build our own self-confidence and our ability and what we're able to do, our problem solving. 3 is making it more affordable. So that's 3. Well, let's move on to number 4. Number 4. Number 4 is, I wish I knew that solo travel doesn't necessarily mean being alone, like alone the whole time. So when I went to Venice, I was basically alone the whole time. There were people moving around me, but there was never that point of like real connection. And so now doing group tours, it allows you to be with a group of people over, a 7, a 12, a 14, however long the tour is, day period, where you actually make connections and strangers can become friends. Same thing with a cruise. You start off, not knowing anyone, but you see these same faces over meals and you make connections. So solo travel doesn't necessarily mean being alone. Also, when I went to Cape Town, South Africa, I was going there for school. We were having our advance. I'm in a doctoral program. We were having our advance there, but I went a few days early because I was like, how often am I going to get to Cape Town? So I want to be able to see, explore, and do other things. And I happened to take a day tour to go down to Cape Hope and, to see the penguins and, all the fun things that you must do when you go to Cape Town. And there were 3 other women who were solo travelers on the tour. And one of them, as we were sharing, information and background about ourselves, we found out we knew people in common, like all the way around the world. And you meet a person who was also from New Jersey, who also worked in pharma, and we knew people in common. Like, it was amazing. So solo travel doesn't have to mean being alone the whole time. So that's number 4. Number 5, the last thing, and probably, between the realizing how it builds you up, that was so important. And I think the next one, just from a growth perspective, is seeing how solo travel like expands your worldview. Travel overall, I believe, does that. So the more you go see the world and, get to meet different types of people, it will expand your worldview. But something about doing it solo, because you have to be more present, you have to be more intentional, you're more in the moment. You have this opportunity to reflect, you have this opportunity to challenge your biases. And it really just opens you up to seeing, as I talked in an earlier video on yesterday, how much people are really just the same all around the world. So solo travel, it's a must do. I think everyone should do it, even if you have hundreds of people in your life who want to go everywhere you go, have the time to do it, have the money to do it, the resources, they got the babysitter, they all want to go. At least have one experience where you go do travel solo. Watch how it expands you. Watch how it allows you to, face fears and move forward. Watch the new things that you learn by doing it. So those are the things I wish I knew. So for those of you who've already said, I'm going to do it, I'm going to solo travel, be sure you check into asking those questions about the promotion. Save a little money if you can. Make it affordable. Don't do it the way I did, spending all your money. This way you can have more trips. So anyway, I thank you guys for joining. So if you are planning to solo travel, I want to hear from you. Tell me about that, and tell me about what's the one thing you're hoping to experience as a solo traveler. And for those of you, you're like, girl, I already been solo traveling. I've been doing that forever. What did I miss? What are some of the things that, you feel were big lessons for solo travel? Put that in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Well, friend, we have reached the end of our time together today, but there is no need for sorrow, because you guessed it, I'm going to see you tomorrow. But until then, keep chasing travel beauty wherever your journeys may take you. Thanks so much for joining.